I'm so glad I don't have, it isn't my faith that brings healing.
Right.
It's our faith. But if you don't have faith, then, that's a problem. We got to pray for you to get faith before you get healed. Because you're not going to get healed without faith.
Right.
Faith is the key that opens the door to the glory of God. So with faith, you believe God, and the door opens and the glory of God is manifested, and signs and wonders and miracles follow after that. In other words, you can tell we had a good time at camp meeting. Now, it's the first time in 20 years we've been back to that camp meeting. And every time Debs and I used to go, see, we were our front row people. That way I don't have to look at the back of anybody else's head. I like to sit up close. I can stay more focused too. We couldn't get anywhere near the front. Used to, the front rows were always left. So I was happy. I knew my seat would be there when I got there. Well, we couldn't even get close to the front. We sat on the back row the first time because we got there a little bit late. Some things change in 20 years, some things don't. We got there a little bit late. I'm not picking on anybody. It's not Mother's Day, so I'm not picking on anybody. But we got there a little bit late, but nevertheless, it was still wonderful. The next night we got a little bit further up. Well, by the end of the week, we were sitting on the second row, right there front. And we weren't even supposed to be up there. That was for the dignitaries. So I saw Bishop Doug Beecham, our general superintendent, and I said, am I taking somebody's seat? Are we taking somebody's seat? Do we need to move? He said, no, stay right there. So anybody that looked at me after that, I said, the bishop told me to stay here. I'm just doing what the bishop says. And I just loved it to be back up front again and be a part of it. I like to be where the action is. That way, if I get scared, I can't run away. I want to stay right there where God's working and moving. And I want, if a guy's sweating, I want his sweat to fly out on me. Don't matter. He can even spit on me if he wants to. Paul's spit was anointed and brought healing to people, or was it Peter? One of those guys. Anyway, it was a wonderful time for us to be away, and a great blessing, and so it just really built me up to believe. Let me tell you, we got, in fact, when we sat there that night, right behind us was some old friends of ours, the Dodsons, Mike and Debbie Dodson. They actually started a church in Lynchburg when we were living in Natural Bridge, when we were pastoring in Natural Bridge Church. Now, Natural Bridge Church for Rockbridge County was a big church. For Rockbridge County. There's not many people living in Rockbridge County. 19,000 people in the entire county, and we had 120 of them in our church. That made us a big church in that county. And so we started doing things to help them over in Lynchburg. And we invited for that church to come over and be with us in the service, and Mike preached, and we had a great time. And did I preach over there one time? Yeah, I preached over. He invited me over there. By that time, they had more people than we had in Natural Bridge. So I didn't say anything about that. But let me tell you, the last number I knew that they had was over 3,000 in his church. In 20 years, 3,000. And not only that, they have mother churches all over the area that are also running in the thousands. So I don't know how many thousand people all told. When we first met them, they had a handful of people in overalls coming. Just country people coming. But God moved and mighty things happened. And I'm telling you, Mike, he's just a good old boy. And his wife is a wonderful lady. But God did that work there, so why not here? I even told him, I said, I don't understand why we're not just busting out of the seams. We're better than Lynchburg. Nobody knows anything about Lynchburg, huh? That's where Jerry Falwell was. It's where his son is now. Lynchburg it's a very Christianized city. For you to grow a church that big, that fast there, that's a miracle. I mean, you're stealing Baptist when you do that. Because, in Lynchburg, they don't ask you, are you a Christian? They just want to know what kind of Baptist you are. Are you Southern Baptist or Independent Baptist or Hardship Baptist or Primitive Baptist? I always wanted to be more than primitive myself.
Yeah.
So if I was going to be a Baptist, it wouldn't be primitive. My great-granddaddy was a primitive Baptist preacher, and I'm glad things have moved up in the world. Now I'm part of the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, and God is doing great things in our movement. And Dr. Beecham was there, and we got to spend time with him and Preston Mathena, who was reelected as our state superintendent, our bishop here in the Appalachian Conference, and he has done an incredible job. We were just in awe. We couldn't believe it when we drove on the campground. It's like everything is different there. They've got building after building. When we used to go up there, there was a lot of meadows and stuff. And I'm telling you, I never wanted to stay in that dormitory. It was scary looking. And it looked like River Springs in Alabama, and I was always scared to stay there. I did. We had to shake our shoes out in the morning and make sure there weren't any scorpions in them. I'm not kidding. They got scorpions. Besides the scorpions and the horse flies that would attack us every time we went to the altar, it was better than River Springs. I didn't miss the scorpions or the horse flies either. I was glad they weren't there. Just an amazing thing. They're going to have to tear that thing down and build a new one. It was packed to the gills every single service. And so that's, I said 20 years. Just 20 years. This has happened in 20 years. I'm shocked. I'm amazed, and I am thankful. And I'm so happy to see this progress being made in that little town, Dublin, Virginia. Dublin, Virginia is benefiting from the International Pentecostal Holiness Church and the Appalachian Conference being right there in Dublin. That little town is growing because of that. You know why? God's blessing brings increase.
Amen.
So if you want to be blessed, if you say, well, let's just go ahead and believe for blessing. With blessing comes increase. And we will see. There is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be putting chairs in the aisle here to accommodate everybody. And thinking about already, where are we going to put the next building? Where are we going to build that? I've got faith for that. God has got greater things ahead of us. So you begin to believe that. I don't want to be alone in that. Oh, well, that's just for the preacher. He says things like that. He's exaggerating. I am not exaggerating when I'm talking about what God can do. Now, if it was what I could do, if I was going to say, let's build the Barry L. Null Auditorium for our church, see, that probably would not happen. But I am not interested in my name being attached to any of it. I am interested in the glory of God being made manifest. There are more than enough people in this county. If we have a church of 3,000 people, you know how many people live in Frederick County? I think it's like 81,000 people. Something like that. So 3,000 is a small percentage. That's not even a big church for Frederick County. So let's say 3,000 is our starting point. That's when we really get going. And you say, well, I like it small. Well, then you just fellowship with those people in the pews around you. We'll accommodate for that. I'm going to tell you, Debs and I have been blessed to visit the Lakewood Church, and I know it's always so controversial. People want to criticize Joel Osteen and what God's done down there, and John Osteen, his father, who's in heaven now. You can criticize that all you want to, but the proof is in the pudding. They fill up an auditorium that'll hold 15,000 people 3 times every Sunday and 1 time every Saturday night. Completely filled. And I'm telling you, you say, well, what I watch on TV is not even full gospel. You're not seeing the whole show. Let me tell you something. Before they start that half hour, man, the power of God is moving across that congregation. It's amazing. The praise and worship is through the roof. And then he says, okay, y'all, we got our half hour now. And everybody acts nice for the TV. So it won't scare everybody in America. And then he said, okay, we're done. Let's go again. And we've been blessed to be in that congregation on several occasions and meet the Osteens. I got to talk to his mama and his sister and his wife. And in fact, she told me I had one of the prettiest ties on she'd ever seen. She said, I'm going to tell Joel to get one. I said, I'm looking forward to it. I want to see that tie on TV. Yep, there's the tie I like, right there on Joel Osteen. But here's the thing. We felt like we weren't even in a big church. We felt at home. We immediately were connecting with people around us. It was like a family. That's what God can do even when there's an abundance. If you don't like it that way, you better stay away from Jesus, because there's going to be an abundance. There's going to be so many people in heaven, so many people in glory, it'll be beyond counting. So if numbers and noise scare you, don't go to heaven. Well, if you go the other way, you're going to hear a lot of screaming too. And I hope the numbers aren't so large there, because God didn't create it for us. I might as well preach. Well, happy Father's Day. We're looking forward to our one and only daughter bringing our one and only grandson, and I got a shirt I ordered in the mail that says Papa 2016. That's when I started being Papa. And every time I see him, I'd say, Cohen, I'm Papa. You're Cohen, I'm Papa. So then I'd say, who am I, Cohen? He'd go, Papa. And point at himself. So I'm going to point at my chest and show him that and say, I'm Papa. And he calls me that on the, what do you call it, FaceTime? That's one thing I wasn't very happy about in the future is all that. I just think somebody not seeing me when they're talking to me. I wouldn't mind a flying car, though. It's been a lot quicker trip down to Dublin. Well, let me tell you about this. First of all, an English professor in a big university went into his room and he wrote there on the, well, I suppose they got whiteboards now instead of blackboards. Nothing bigoted about that. It's just the whiteboards show up better. He wrote on there this statement without any punctuation. A woman without a man is nothing. And then he told everybody in the class to write that sentence and put punctuation in it. So the men wrote this. A woman, comma, without her man, comma, is nothing. And the women wrote, a woman, colon, without her, man is nothing. So, punctuation can make a lot of difference. That's where you get in trouble with text messages and emails. It's hard for people to get your heart in those things. Here's a good question for you. I'm going after it here. If a man speaks in a forest and there is no women to hear him, is he still wrong? Just ponder that one. Now here's another story, but this one leads into what I want to preach. This is about this family from Texas. Anybody here from Texas? Are you from Texas? Okay, good. I can make fun of Texas. We got married in Texas, but people in Texas, you know, they want everything to go right. Well, this family from Texas decided they're going to go see the rest of the zoo of America. Texas is a country, you know. You can go to the Texas Embassy in London. They were a country at one time. Now it's a restaurant. You can get Mexican food there. Tex-Mex. But anyway, they went on vacation, and they were in Memphis, and they stopped at one of them gas stations, you know, that kind of like a Subway or some other kind of restaurant attached to it. Sometimes I'm sort of suspicious of those places, but nevertheless, they decided they went in there and ate their dinner, and he put gas in the car, and so he went in to the gas station, and he paid with cash, and he was getting his change, and he looked outside, and there goes his car driving away. Now see, he had one of those vans, and the whole way to Memphis, his wife was in the back of the van sleeping. And so now it was his turn. So she just figured he was already back there, and she took off and left him there at the gas station in Memphis. And they're just going on tooling down the road. So he said, well, I'll borrow the phone here and I'll call my cell phone. His cell phone was right there in that center console, plugged in, charging up, and nobody in his car, there were 7 people in that van, nobody would answer. And went straight to voicemail. Leaving yourself a message is not going to help anything. So he called the state police, and they said, well, we don't really know what to do about that. It would be kind of hard to track him down. He said, oh, I got an idea. So they took him somewhere where he could access the internet on a computer, and he sent one of his children a message on Facebook, and they got it immediately. And so they'd already got 100 miles down the road. They had to turn around and come back. So that was... fathers can sometimes relate to how that might be. That a man might not be. Mother can be out of the house 2 hours and everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Father be out of the house a week and everybody goes, did he go somewhere? Did he leave the house? See, that's what it means sometimes to be a man, and that's all right, you know. Sometimes I think the less useful I am, the better off I am. Instead of being more useful. Well, we might can relate about that. We might can understand that a little bit. But there is a picture in the Bible of what it means to be a godly man. And that is our goal. I'm going to say that this is the goal for boys and girls and men and women. And if I didn't cover you, I'm sorry with that statement. Everybody can latch onto this, but I'm preaching a Father's Day sermon. But I have never been much on made-up holidays anyway. It's right to honor mothers and fathers, but man, we're having Dog's Day every year now, I think, and the Cat's Holiday, and Hallmark is smart. They're creating holidays for every single thing they can think of, so you go out and buy a card. How many of you know your dog's not reading that card? At best, you might chew it up if it smells good. And a cat, believe me, they're not going to pay attention to it. Last thing a cat's going to do is pay attention to anything you want. You say, I go to the cat sometimes, I'll say, look at me. They won't look at me for nothing. They look everywhere else in the room but me. They know. And when I don't want them near me, both of them climb right up on top of me. It's like they have a sixth sense about that. He doesn't like us. Let's go. Let's bother him. Well, so I don't want a cat holiday. Father's Day was one of them made-up holidays, but I think it's fine. I think that it is particularly important because we call God Father, and see, a lot of us, maybe we had a good or a bad experience with our father. Now, I can think of good and bad things about my daddy, Master Sergeant Curtis G. Null. He was a great example to me in many ways, and a terrible example in other ways. Now, he left this world at 59 because he lived such a hard life. He was younger than me when he left this world. But I loved him, and he was my friend, and towards the end of his life, we became closer than ever, and he gave his heart to Jesus before he left. So I'm so happy about that. It gave me such great peace. And I couldn't, he wanted me to preach at his funeral, but I just couldn't honor that wish. I was too broke up. But I did tell everybody, I got up down there at the little Primitive Baptist Church that my great-grandfather pastored. Yeah, it's still going. Probably because the Knolls are stubborn. They're going to keep it going if, they're part of it. Any of the Knolls that still live around there in Connecticut County. And the Knoll Cemetery is right behind it. You probably don't believe me. I'll show you a picture of it. It says the Knoll Cemetery. That's what he says over the gate. Anyway, he wouldn't darken the door of a church, but God worked in his life, and I'm so happy about that. So, but still, I told him one time, because I was learning some things out of Scripture about authority. I was learning some things about how God uses authority. God puts people in authority, and sometimes he puts people in authority that we don't like. So if you had a good or a bad father, put all that aside because God was a good father. But he's going to do things you don't understand. I heard a line in a movie where this woman, I was telling Debs about this woman, she was saying to this Calvary captain, she said, his name was Thomas, she said, Thomas, sometimes you just don't understand the rough ways of the Lord. And I understood what she meant because there have been times in my life I thought the Lord was being kind of rough with me. And see, God had a greater plan.
Right.
Joseph went through rough times in his life, but he recognized it. He said, what you and the devil meant for my harm, God meant for my good.
Hallelujah.
And God took a man out of the pit of despair and put him in to where he was the prime minister of one of the greatest countries in the world. And literally, God used him to save the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
The nation of Israel would have been lost, except for God raised up that man, Joseph, to in essence be the father of Israel. We think about Abraham, but I'm telling you, Joseph, he came into that place there in Egypt, and he was raised. I'm getting my men mixed up. Am I right, Joseph?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'll keep going from there. We're going to look in Philippians chapter 2. So if you want to look there with me, you certainly can. Philippians chapter 2. Now this is where Paul is talking about two young men that he fathered. Now see, it's like I have a friend, Joe Martinez. Maybe someday you'll get to meet him. He's pastor at Assembly of God Church down in South Arkansas. And I was able to father him spiritually. I was able to mentor him as a pastor. And he's doing a great job as the lead pastor there in that church. Now Paul is talking about two of his spiritual sons, Timothy and Epaphroditus, two examples of men who followed God's instructions, and they were godly men. And God wants to help us to be, not just, I'm going to say it again, godly people. And there are characteristics that we can see as we look there in that passage. First of all, they showed compassion. There were men who put relationships before results. Sometimes we get that the other way around. We want it to work out the best for us.